All right, well, it's 2 o'clock, so let's get started. So, hope you're all doing really well. Thank you for being here today. We're really excited to be working with you, and hope that you all have had a great experience so far working on your individual ILMEA excerpts or etudes. And then today, or at this point right now, we're going to talk about how to make a great recording for your audition. So this year more than ever, it's important that we know how to make a great recording. Since we're going to submit everything online, we want to make sure that we're showing our best and playing our best. We all put a lot of work into this, and if we don't have a good recording, we can't show off to the judges, how hard we've practiced and how much work we put into this. So I'll put it together a little presentation, and if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. And if not, we will leave a little bit of time at the very end to answer some questions as well. All right, so first thing I'm going to share my screen really quickly. And then we'll get to the presentation. There we go. Can we see that? Thumbs up if we can see it. Good deal. All right, so first thing we want to do is talk about how to create a great recording. Okay, let's listen to this recording at first and see what we think, and we'll talk about it in a second. All right, there's a poll that's going to come up now. Let's talk about this. What are some factors that affected the quality of the recording? Some things that we could do a little better with. Yeah, so lots of things are wrong with that, right? Yeah. So first thing that comes up, by almost everyone is background noise, right? It's a good thing though to turn off our background noise. And we look at this and it's, we're playing and you have a cell phone that's just right, or a smartphone that's right on this music stand in front of you, and we listen to that and we think, yeah, it's pretty good, right? But it's distracting, and it's easy to, especially with the background noise, to just get used to it, because you're used to hearing that while you're practicing, and you forget that it's actually being recorded. Okay, and we can see that, yeah, that's me playing, and the playing goes pretty well. Play the right rhythms, play the right notes and everything, but it's so distracting as far as the way the background noise is there and the camera angle of where we're looking, that you're so focused on that you're not focused on the playing, and that's what we want to make sure that we avoid whenever you're preparing for your audition. Okay, so now that we see how important it is that we make a quality recording, let's talk about how to do that. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is prepare in advance. Okay, that means practice. Your recording is a performance, not a practice session. So a lot of us will sit down and think, hey, I can record and I've got, unlimited takes. I can spend all afternoon working on this to make the best recording I possibly can, but then you just start playing the same thing over again and the same thing over and over again. You start making the same mistakes over and over again. And then you think, oh my gosh, my etude is due tomorrow. My recording is due tomorrow. And then it just kind of snowballs in a negative way. So the best thing we can do is prepare in advance. If we start practicing and approach this recording session as a performance, not a practice session, it's going to make our recording session just go much more smoothly. Okay. Just a generic idea, okay? The standards are higher for recordings versus live performances. We all listen to the radio. We're listening to live stream. We're listening to streaming music. We're listening to Pandora, Spotify. We're just, in general, used to hearing music that's recorded is just like perfect. We're not used to hearing mistakes on live recordings. And then the judges know that since it is recording, you've got, the ability, if you mess up in your recording, to redo it so you can do it over again. So just in general, the standards are just going to be a little bit higher for live performances than auditions. So you want to make sure that we do our very best for that. Okay, and a good way to start preparing for this is by recording your practice sessions. If we record your practice sessions, and I don't mean sit down in your room, in your bedroom, and press record on something and play for an hour and then listen back to it. I mean, practice starting your etude from the beginning and play it straight through and record it and listen back to it. That way you're going to be your own teacher and you're going to understand what sounds better. You know, hey, if I put my microphone in this location, it sounds a little better. And it's going to get you more familiar with your technology so that you're just comfortable and you can practice recording prior to your audition, prior to your recording session. And then, like I said earlier, we want to make sure we practice playing straight through the whole thing. Okay. Typically when you're practicing, you know, you play the first couple of lines and then you have a mistake, you stop, you stop and work on it. And you want to keep doing that as you prepare for your audition. But when we talk about your recording session, when you record it, you want to have played through from the very first note to the last note multiple times. So you know how, focused you have to be when you play. You're familiar with any endurance issues you might have, and you're just used to playing through everything. So practicing performing is going to be really helpful. And that's just as simple as sitting down and practicing playing from the beginning of the etude to the end of the etude without any mistakes or any issues, just so you're comfortable doing that. Good deal. Because if we don't do that, we have lots of frustration, and we don't want anybody to be in this scenario 10 minutes before the etudes are supposed to be submitted online. Okay, we've got another poll really quickly. Let's take this really quick. So, what are the minimum number of times per week you will be able to record? Okay, so we want to start recording early. We want to start weeks before before the recording's due. So how many times a week do you think you can do that? There we go. We're getting there. 3 and 4. That's looking good, looking good. So, we don't want to just record once a week. If we record once a week, or if we record right before the etudes due, that's just generally not the best possible thing to do in the world, But if we're practicing recording, 3 or 4 times a week, something as simple as using your phone to properly record, or if you have something that's a little more higher quality, and you're just in the habit of recording yourself and listening back, just as important as recording, you want to make sure you listen back. That's going to be so helpful, and make sure that you're set up for success for your audition, okay, for your recording. Okay, now we're talking about recording, okay? We want to talk about a good place to record. You want to find an appropriate place or appropriate space to record. A large space with the best acoustics possible. We want to find the largest place we can that sounds the best. If we're recording, you want to kind of avoid your bedroom if possible, or you kind of want to avoid being outside if you can. You want to find a big place that sounds great. Next thing you want to do is eliminate external noise. That first recording that I played, it had a lot of external noise. There was a fan in the background that was going on. Another thing, if we're sitting there and we're in a place that has a hardwood floor, you might hear foot taps. Or if there's just a general hum in the room. If you're anywhere, close to where we are, there are lots of crickets outside right now. You can have crickets in the background. And it's amazing how many sounds that modern devices can pick up. Or if you have somebody that walks, a pet, anything in the background, we want it to be totally silent. That might mean even turning off the heat or air conditioning in your house for a little bit to get a great recording. One other thing to do when we're talking about the space is consider the ratio of hard versus soft surfaces. In general, the harder the surface, if it's a hardwood floor, brick, walls, or a flat surface in the ceiling, the harder the surface, the more reverb you're going to have in the room. If you go into a lot of concert halls, there's going to be hard surfaces, and it creates that reverb. If you make your recording, in a basement that has carpet, or lots of big furniture, things like that, that's all going to absorb the sound, and it's going to make the recording really dead. And we don't really want that, because that's going to make it where you can hear every mistake, any little blemish on your in your sound, that's going to be picked up on your recording device. So if we can find a place that has a lot of hard surfaces, that doesn't mean necessarily go to your garage or something that has a lot of boomy effect. We don't want to, like, you're sounding in like a wind tunnel, but just use your best judgment and find an appropriate place that sounds the best. And this is why it's important that we go back and record ourselves prior to our recording session. Okay. So great places would be in your band room, band room, or even better, your auditorium. These places are made to hear, for you to sound your best in. And if you do that, a quick side note, if you sit and record in the band room, these are video recordings. It's not just audio. So maybe try to clean the room up a little bit. Don't have chairs and stands just kind of strewn all about. Or if you're in the auditorium and you get on the stage, and there's a set on the stage from a play or something, maybe try to position yourself where that's not in the background, just so it looks professional. If the judge looks at your recording and it just looks professional before they even hear a note, that's just going to be one more thing in your favor that's going to be a positive thing for you. All right, quick poll. What location will be the best option for you to record in? Another place, if you have access to a large sanctuary or something like that, that would be great too. Yeah, auditorium, and that's something that you want to, if you do this, setting this up with your band director, don't wait until the night before the audition is due and email your band director and say, hey, can I get in the auditorium or something? This is something you want to plan. If you can get into a good space, the band room or auditorium, or maybe a large sanctuary or something. If you don't, some people might have a large place in their home that works fine. But if you can get into like your auditorium multiple times or your church multiple times before you record, that's going to be something that's going to be helpful. And you can pick and choose your best recording. And you can experiment with where to place your recording device. Okay? Speaking of recording devices, we want to talk about what to use, what quality equipment. We want to make sure that we're using the best things so we can sound our best. There's nothing more frustrating than putting a lot of practice into your etudes and having all this nuance, and then it not being able to be picked up by your recording device. So cell phones and tablets do capture good video, but generally, especially if you're a brass player, they might not pick up the best audio. So a great thing to do is to utilize an external microphone if possible. And this can be a USB microphone that goes to your computer. If you're making you can make a recording with QuickTime on your computer if you have a Mac, or you can use your phone or tablet with an external microphone. And this will make a huge difference in the sound quality. Before you record, and this goes back to recording frequently, you want to test your equipment and listen to the product frequently. You want to make sure that whenever you're playing and you're practicing or you're recording, that your microphone is properly set up, that it's properly connected to your phone or computer, and that you listen back frequently to make sure you're happy with the way it sounds. Okay? And then once we've got a good equipment, we want to make sure that we place our microphones appropriately. Okay, and that's a big thing that we're going to talk about in just a few minutes. So we talked about equipment, proper equipment, good equipment to use. I'm a huge proponent of handheld recorders. These are great. As we know, it's a video recording, so we can't just use this. This is what's called a Zoom H1N. This company called Zoom, it's not the same as the Zoom conferences that we're on now as far as the links that we use for school. This is an audio equipment. If you just Google Zoom H1N, all these different devices will come up. There's a great thing. It's got a USB port on it, so you can plug this into or connect this to your computer. And that's actually what I'm doing right now. I have a Zoom, and it works really well for recording onto your computer. And it's great for practice sessions. When you're practicing, you can just put this in your case. You can carry it anyway. You can carry it to your lessons. You can carry it to your school. And you can practice making good recordings and finding a good space that works for. Another great thing, USB microphones that plug directly into your computer. If you want to use a QuickTime video for example, to record yourself. This Snowball mic, $50, not too expensive, but it's going to be a significant upgrade over your microphone on your computer. And then this other microphone, you can get for your phone. Okay, and this is another great thing. You know, $60. You can find this just by Googling it. You'll need to be careful about the adapter. If you have the latest iPhone that doesn't have a headphone jack, but there are adapters that you can get that can work with this, and this should work with both Droid or Android and iPhone. So these are all great options, and will definitely upgrade your the sound quality of your performance. Okay. All right. Sorry. Poll. Equipment. What do you think we're going to record with? What kind of recording equipment do you have available or plan to purchase? That's great. Lots of laptops or external devices. You know, all these are great. If you have a brand new phone, you know, or some of the latest phones, you know, it's probably going to work all right. But if we have some kind of external or extra microphone, it's going to be good. One thing to be careful about, if you do get an external or microphone, a lot of the microphones will be lavalier microphones or lapel microphones. Those are usually cheaper. I mean, you can find those on Amazon for like $10. You want to be sure to not use those when you're recording for your ILMEA audition. If you buy like a $10 lavalier or lapel microphone, that's designed to clip onto your collar when you're speaking, and that's not going to pick up all the nuance. That's probably going to distort your recording and not sound very good. So if you do get an external microphone, make sure that you don't get the lavalier microphone. Okay, something that we've touched on just a little bit already is how to set up your equipment. As we saw in that very first video that we made, it was not set up very well, both visually or audio-wise either. So we want to talk about the distance from the performer, where to set this up. Typically 5 to 6 feet away. You know, that's kind of the sweet spot in general. 5 to 6 feet directly in front of you, okay? And if you're a trumpet or trombone player, this is going to be something that you're going to experiment with a good bit. Because if your bell is pointing straight towards the microphone, you might need to put it to the side a little bit. If you're a horn player, this is something, especially depending on the room, that you're going to do a lot of trial and error with to make sure you pick up the clarity of the horn, since the bell's facing in a different direction. So these are all just lots of trial and error. So generally 5 to 6 feet away. You want to avoid placing recording equipment on your music stand right in front of you. The very first video that we looked at, the recording was on the music stand right in front of us, and it's not very satisfying musically or visually, right? It picks up lots of external noise. It's not going to pick up much nuance. You're not going to hear any dynamic or articulation contrast, the things that we work so hard on for our auditions. Next thing we'll talk about is the angle of our microphone. You know, as we looked at, you know, if we have like a Zoom, for example, if we have something like this that has these 2 prongs on it, or any kind of, or that Snowball microphone that's facing forward, we want to make sure that's pointed directly at us. If we have a Zoom microphone that has the 2 prongs on it, and they're like this, they're pointing straight up, that's not going to help. That's only going to hear an echo, okay? So we want to make sure that the angle of the microphone is facing us directly. Because all microphones are directional, okay? Everything we have, whether it's our phone or any external mic, USB microphone, it's going to be directional. So we want to make sure that we have that set up correctly. Yes, pointing towards you. Okay, so we've talked about the angle of the microphone, the distance of the microphone. Now we're going to talk about video. In general, for our ILMEA auditions, landscape. If we have a landscape video, that's going to look better. It's going to be better for the audition. I know a lot of us are familiar with like TikTok videos and things like that, where it's not landscape, where it's portrait, but we want to make sure we have it at landscape. And then we want to utilize a tripod or a stable surface to hold our phone or hold our camera or anything that we're recording with. You don't want to have your friend just kind of pick your phone up and hold it for you. No matter how hard they try, they're probably going to move a little bit, or it's going to be obvious that there's something just not totally steady with that. I mean, if you're sitting there and you're playing your best and it's shaking, it's going to be distracting for the judge, and it's going to be just one more thing that you can do, one more thing you can put in your favor to convey a professional recording, and just put something else in your favor to help you for the audition. Okay, so we got one more poll. Let's take this extra poll now. There we go. What will you be recording, or will you be recording yourself with an assistant? So, assistant, this is kind of a broad term. You know, this could be your band director, it could be a friend, it could be a parent. And this is something just so we can kind of experiment with too. You know, you can record it if you have someone to help you that hold the microphone, or help you out as far as, give you pointers, someone like your band director that can help you. That's a good thing, so don't be afraid to ask for help whenever you're working on your recording process or going through the recording process. And it's totally fine to record by yourself and then record some with somebody else. Again, this goes back into trial and error in recording multiple times, okay? We don't want you to just the day before the audition set up and record in your room at home. You want to start recording weeks before your audition, just to get in the habit of recording and to figure out a good setup that works best for you, just so you're put in the best position to be successful. Okay? All right. Audio source selection. So in case we run into anything, this is a good thing for troubleshooting. I know this sounds kind of intimidating, audio source selection, but this is actually really simple. And this is, if you're using an external microphone, this is just a good thing to make sure that it's actually being utilized, and making sure that your phone or your computer or tablet is recognizing that you've got an external microphone selected. And if you have any doubt, or if you are confused, a good resource is always YouTube. You can just search how to set up a USB or external microphone with an iPhone 10 or with whatever device you're using. Okay, so YouTube's a great way for that. But USB mic or QuickTime or similar, you want to just make sure that in the settings that it's set up to recognize that microphone. And the same thing in a mobile phone. Typically, the microphone will automatically recognize your device, especially if you're on a phone. On my computer, whenever I plug in an external device, it automatically recognizes it. But if you're on your computer and it's not, you can go to System Preferences on a Mac, or there's other settings on a PC where you can just make sure that the input is your microphone, the output is your speakers. If the input is, just make sure the input is set on whatever external microphone you have. And then again, this is why it's important that we start early with our recording process. If you're sitting there the day before your recording is due and you're trying to sort some of this stuff out, it's going to be tough. You're just adding another level of stress, trying to figure out any technical problems the day before your audition. So you want to get this stuff worked out well in advance. Another thing that you have to consider, especially if you're using Apple products like an iPad or an iPhone, are the different adapters. Especially if you're using external mic that requires an audio jack. The new microphones or new iPhones don't have that 1/8 audio jack for headphones. It's all just one jack for everything. So if that's what you're going to use and you're planning to use an external microphone, make sure that you test this early. Make sure you have any necessary adapters that can help with that. And then the last thing you want to do, once we work on this, is make sure we listen to the final product. You don't want to record it and just kind of say, done with that, okay? Instead, we want to make sure that you go through and you listen to this. In the best possible scenario would be if you start recording, a month before the audition is due, and you start recording and you listen back to it in your practice sessions. You start recording, you running through the entire thing, 3 or 4 weeks beforehand, and you start doing that, 2 or 3 or 4 times a week. You are just your own teacher. You can hear what is going well and what things are not going so well. We've all had an experience where we've listened to our own voices on a answering machine, and we think, oh, that's not me. I don't sound anything like that. It's the same thing with our playing. When we're playing, it's amazing the difference that it sounds, how different it sounds from our ear when we're playing compared to whenever we're recording it. We might think that we're making this dynamic contrast, but then we listen back and realize, hey, in order for that to be, picked up on the microphone, we have to really exaggerate that forte or really exaggerate that piano to convey that. So listening to the product, especially the final product, but also everything in between, is going to be something that's really helpful for us. Now, if we really want to, listen and be nitpicky about this, use headphones to listen. That's probably what the judges are going to use. They're probably going to use headphones so they can hear the best, hear all the nuance and everything. And headphones are always going to be your best bet for that. And then ensure you're satisfied with your performance quality. You have the ability to re-record. If you miss a note in your audition, in your etude, you can re-record the thing, so you don't have to worry about that. There's no excuse for submitting a recording that has wrong notes or wrong rhythms, because you have multiple attempts at this. Yes, re-record is necessary. Now, this is kind of one caveat here. Well, this re-record is necessary. This goes back to the beginning, one of the first slides where we said your recording session is not a practice session. Sometimes you can sit down and you think, if I just have one more time, if I can just have one more take, if I do and record this one more time, I can just get it perfect. Typically, in a recording session, I wouldn't record any of these etudes more than 3 or 4 times a day. If you're at 10 or if you're at 15 or 20, by that point, your mouth's shot, you're just mentally exhausted, and you're probably not going to play your absolute best at this. So you want to make sure that you kind of limit this to 3 or 4 times a day. And you're going to be amazed of once you get past, number 4 or 5, they all start to sound the same, or it just starts to give and take. You're so focused on, I've cracked this same note in the same measure for the past 4 recordings. I'm so focused on playing that right that we forget to do our dynamics in the next measure, or we forget to do something else and play a beautiful phrase in a different part of the etude. So 3 to 4 times a day, 3 or 4 takes a day is kind of the sweet spot. I wouldn't suggest going higher than that. Okay. Another great thing to do is ask for feedback on recordings. Don't be afraid to bring this to a professional. Whether that's your band director, if you take private lessons, or any of the WIU applied faculty. Any of the trombone, trumpet, horn, clarinet, any of the faculty here would be happy to get a recording from you and critique it, or to set up a lesson with any WIU faculty before your recordings, just to make sure that you're playing your best. It's always good to have feedback on that. And if you do that, start your feedback process early. Don't send a recording to your band director and say, hey, I've got 30 minutes until this recording's due. What do you think? Start this like 2 weeks in advance. And ideally, you'll bring your recording to your band director or private teacher. They'll listen to it and say, hey, let's work on dynamics. Let's work on articulation. And you say, okay, great. And then you work on that and record it again and bring it back the next week. And they say, oh, that sounds great. Oh, hey, maybe you did too much contrast there. Let's dial that back. Or maybe, hey, let's turn it up. Maybe you're in the right direction. You're going the right direction, but let's do some more. This is just a great way to get feedback, and just a great way to put yourself in just a better position to be successful at the audition. So starting that early is going to help. Don't wait until the week of the audition or the day of the audition is due to start to ask people for help on that, okay? Your parents if they're trained, if they have a musical background, they can be a good resource. But if your mom is like my mother, she's just going to tell me it sounds great no matter what. I could play all the wrong rhythms and she'd be like, oh, that sounds just fantastic. I'm so proud of you, So just kind of take that with a grain of salt, as far as listening to your parent or letting your parents listen. If you're proud of a recording, absolutely play that for your parents. You want them to hear you progress and hear you improve. But when you're relying on, hey, is that dotted 8/16 exactly right? Am I placing this rhythm exactly right? Is this totally in tune? They might not be the very best person you can talk to. So don't be afraid to go to a band director or private teacher to help you with that. Okay, last thing we want to do is that's just a great thumbnail. But oh, sorry, poll. Let's go to this poll. How are we? Yeah, who do you have available to help you listen to your recordings and provide feedback? Band director, yeah. And this is a great thing, especially this year. With everything being online, easy just to upload this onto Google Drive and send somebody a link. You know, um, and your band director is probably going to be your first resource, but also don't hesitate at all to reach out to a private teacher, WIU faculty member. Also, don't feel like you only have to select one. Don't think, oh, I'm only going to let my band director listen to this, or I'm only going to let my private teacher listen to this. The more information you get, the better. And it's probably going to be reassuring too if you let three different people listen to this and they all say the same thing. If you let your band director listen to this and they say, hey, you're playing this rhythm wrong, and you think, oh, that's not, you think your band director's wrong, and then you get the same feedback from a private teacher, and then someone else here, that's just one more thing that's like, oh, okay, hey, I need to make sure I'm doing this correctly, okay? So you'll notice that if you let people listen to this, especially more than one person listen to this, you'll probably get a lot of the similar information, and it'll just convince you to do that thing, okay, to make sure you're playing correctly. Okay, last thing, here's the same etude I played at the beginning. It's going to be really helpful if you have headphones on this, just to kind of hear this at higher quality. But compare the first recording to this recording and see if we can hear some kind of difference. All right, so just briefly, if you didn't have headphones on, it's probably kind of soft, but some things to talk about. While we're set up here, if we can see that a little better, you can see that the microphone angle or the camera angle, first of all, is just a little more professional. We can kind of see the room. It's not zoomed in. It's not on our stand. The microphone's at a better angle too. It's about 6 feet away from us. Another thing that we haven't really talked about either is how to dress. We want to make sure we're dressed appropriately. You don't want to dress as though this was a concert. I wouldn't recommend, going crazy with like a tuxedo or anything like that, but just to look professional. You want to present yourself both visually and audio wise the best possible way. Okay, so just a few of these basic differences are going to help you so much. This is the auditorium here at WIU. This is on the stage, and there's no external noises. All that's cut out. There's no fan or anything in the background. So if you can find a place like your band room or a large room, whether it's a sanctuary or something, that's just going to be really helpful for you. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us at WIU. All the faculty are more than happy to help you prepare for your audition. You can just go to the website, the wiu.edu/music, to find a faculty member, to find their website, or to find their email address. Email in higher ed and college, and probably for all of you this year especially, is the primary mode of communication. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate at all to reach out to ask us anything. And then the next thing, the next presentation that's coming up, we're going to talk a little more in this one, but the next thing that's coming up is majoring in music. It's a great career. There's a lot of folks, if you're auditioning for ILMEA All-State, you're probably pretty serious about music. You're probably serious about your band program. It's something you might be interested in, either majoring or minoring in music. And we have a great session set up after that, after this, about what it's like as a music major, and what the process is to get accepted into a music program and get accepted with scholarship, which is something that we all really want. Okay, so with that being said, Mrs. Land or Dr. Gardner, do we have any questions at this point?
Yeah, so Dr. Lynn, we have a number of questions coming in the chat. I thought we could use some of this time to address those, if that's all right. So I'll try my best to go chronologically from when they were submitted, but students feel free to submit questions and we'll address as many of them as we can. The first one was from Alyssa. She was wondering about using a phone for the video recording portion and then using an external microphone that might be more of a higher quality from like a professional recording standpoint. And I imagine that might include some adapters and maybe a board, phantom power, things like that. So I thought Dr. Land, you could speak a little bit about that.
Absolutely. You know, the video that I made actually, this last one was made with an iPad as the video, and then external microphones that were hanging in the auditorium here that were really high quality. So that's actually a great thing. In the cameras on modern or the most recent um, tablets or smartphones are really capable for this audition, you know, because we're just looking at a steady camera angle. We're not switching anything or anything, you know, fancy. We just want it to be straight on you. So that's a great option. And then you can use something like iMovie if you have an external microphone to put it all together. Um, you know, if you do that, it's always a great idea to clap at the beginning. If you do that, then you can kind of sync up the video and the audio. That's a great way. So you have to use some kind of software to link the audio or combine the audio and the video together. But that is a great way to do it. And I've made a lot of videos like that too. So you can use a phone as the camera and then some kind of external microphone, and then clap at the beginning just so you can get it to line up, and then use a software, something like iMovie or I think Windows Movie Maker if you have a PC to put it together.
Great. All right. Moving forward, some of these I answered, but I'd like to reiterate in case any students didn't see the chat. Colin asked about dressing up for the video, and I think Dr. Land touched on that, but we definitely want to encourage you to appear professional. I think Dr. Land and Dr. Gardner would agree that when you dress professionally, you feel like you're going to play more professionally. It's kind of a mental shift that you make when you dress up. Dr. Land, anything to add there?
Absolutely. I think dressing up is going to be something that's very helpful. You know, you just want to use your best judgment. This is like a job interview. You know, if you want to wear a suit or, you know, I wouldn't necessarily wear my band uniform if it has the band name on it, if it has your school name. I would kind of lean away from that. But just looking professionally, I think is going to be something that's going to be very helpful. Dr. Gardner, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I just think that so much of performance is also visual that it's something you don't want it to factor in at all. So if you're at all concerned about your attire, then just plan on something nice and neutral. You know, we're not seeing what you have written on your T-shirt, or you know, you don't need to wear a tux either, but just something nice that you would wear to an event at school or church or something. Okay.
Great.
All
Okay.
right.
Sorry, Dr. Line, I'm continuing looking through here. Some of these I've answered. Nora's question was regarding the recordings. Should they be made separately or together as far as scales versus etudes? So what I understand from ILMEA is that you can create two separate recordings, one being your scales and one being your etudes, but that your etudes should be performed as if you were playing them in an audition scenario. So if that makes sense, just to kind of mimic that performance of the etudes. Dr. Lando Gardner, anything to add?
You go ahead.
It's different, and I'm not clear on this, so this is something that you all should make sure to know from your band directors. Is normally for district auditions they reduce the etude excerpts. I don't know if that'll be happening this year or not. That's not clear to me. So you're going to want to check with your band director and double check. Can I do one etude and another etude? Just make sure that you're 100% clear on that, because remember that we're Western Illinois University. We're not ILMEA, so we're doing our best to communicate what we know from them. But your teachers, your band directors will have the most current information from them.
And that's why it's also important that you do this early and ask for feedback. You know, you would hate to record this and have like your best performance recorded, and then bring you to your band director the day before it's due, and they say, "Hey, this sounds great, but your format is wrong. You were supposed to record the etudes in one take and you did them in separate takes. And then you had, the auditorium available, and then all of a sudden it's not available at this point to re-record everything. So this is what you want to you want to record early and then get feedback from your band director, who's going to have the most up-to-date information on this.
Great. Continuing on, I'm still going chronologically, so continue to submit questions, but I'm watching the chat. Victoria asked about if you don't have access to your band room or an auditorium and you're just in your home, what would be the top recommendation for a place to choose to record?
That's a great question. And I would just find the largest room you have. Maybe you have a living room that's pretty good size. And then that's going to be important when we have your microphone placement. If you're using your phone, you want to make sure it's, 6 feet away or so, at least 6 feet away. Don't go, 15 or 20 feet away. But you want to just pick up some of the resonance or the reflection of the sound in your room. And then think about the background too. Maybe if your bedroom has tall ceilings and is really nice, and your bed's going to be in the background, make sure it's made. Make sure there aren't dirty clothes on the floor. If it's maybe your kitchen is the best place to record, maybe you have tile floors in your home or something like that. Make sure there aren't dirty dishes in the background. You just want to use use a common sense about what looks the best, and then of just kind of experiment. And that's a great place to experiment. I would just generally think that it'll be your living room will generally be the largest place. But it's going to be a little bit of trial and error in a place that's large enough to get the microphone, about 6 feet away. I would try to avoid recording outside, because if you're outside, there's really no place for the sound to reflect. So there's not going to be any kind of reverb or anything like that. And that opens you up to lots of distractions, a car driving by or a dog barking or something like that you want to avoid. So I would just generally think the living room would probably be the best place, but that's just something that you use with trial and error.
One little note too is you may think about, well, you've got siblings and you've got family members, and what's a good time, and can maybe you go over to grandma's house and record at her house or something else, because obviously it'll be really frustrating if you're recording and your little brother comes running in and disrupts you. Okay.
Or your animal. That's another thing too, is your dog bark, or dogs are always happy to see you when you come home. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
Sure, or we all know your cat sometimes likes to jump into the video screen and walk by, so you never know, but it's good to start early and plan as best you can, I think, is the theme we're hearing. So we had a question about, if I wonder, Dr. Lane, if we could sneak back to the external microphone slide. So in case any students wanted to write down some of these models, again, these are just a couple suggestions that we have for you. You're welcome to explore other options, but remember what Dr. Land mentioned, especially about lapel microphones, and kind of what is the microphone designed for. And Dr. Gardner mentioned, that the microphones in our mobile devices are designed just for speaking. So these microphones are going to have a larger diaphragm, are going to take a larger frequency, which is, of course, what we hear on our instruments. Dr. Land, anything to add?
Yeah, absolutely. So these are just a couple, like we were talking about, that we recommend. We're not endorsed or anything by Zoom, but I love these microphones. They're higher quality, and they're compatible with a lot of different devices since they have a USB port on it. This is made for external microphone on a laptop. You can probably, I think you can use this with a tablet. I'm not positive, but I know that this is most frequently used with a laptop, just a USB. And if you have like QuickTime or something like that, some kind of video software, this is easy to just plug in. And this is just another video mic for your phone. And they make lots of different ones for these. And they actually have some kind of zoom attachments where it'll just look like these. These are two microphones right here. And they're pointed, they're kind of layered on top of each other like that. And you want to make sure that that's pointed at you, because it's, again, all your microphones are directional. And if they're like this, there's going to be an echo because the sound is hitting one microphone at a different time than the other. So that's why they set them up like this, and they're directional. They're designed to go straight at you. So that's why the microphone placement is important. Because if you set it up vertically, it's just going to hear an echo. And you can see right here where the microphone is facing you, you know, where the emblem is and everything right here. So it's designed that this is set up in front of you, and then you can move this around. But they make sections where, like for Zoom, for example, you can get an external microphone that'll plug into this, into your phone, and it's made specifically for that. And if you just do a quick Google or Amazon search, you can find all sorts of external microphones for your tablet or phone. So yeah, these are just a couple. These snowball microphones are kind of all the rage right now. But so if you want to get one of these, I would recommend ordering it sooner rather than later, because there might be a backlog on it. Like if you're trying to buy like a camera for your computer right now, those are really hard to find just because everyone is on Zoom all the time now. So if you're going to buy one of these, I would recommend doing it pretty soon. I know the price is kind of intimidating for some of these, especially the Zoom products. But if you intend to be a music major, you're probably going to end up buying one of these, and this is actually a great deal for the quality of this. And you might, if you want to be a music major, you might need to submit a high quality recording for acceptance with your application. And again, you know, if you invest $120 for a good microphone and it gets you a $3,000 music scholarship because your audition is so good, that's a pretty good investment, I would think. So, you know, just a couple of things, but these are all great microphones.
Great. Yeah. Okay. So I'm watching the chat. I'm seeing a couple questions about introducing yourself and or announcing the pieces that you're playing. I have to say that, like Dr. Gardner said, we are not ILMEA, so I'm not off the top certain exactly if they prefer that you do introduce yourself or not.
We have a couple of band directors here with us. If any of them want to jump in, they're welcome to answer these questions.
That would be great if anyone can add that in the chat. If not, we will follow up and find that information out for you, or your band director, I'm sure, can help you find that information. But I understand you want to make it professional. I appreciate that. Just to answer one question that came up, speaking of following up, someone asked if the slides will be available. They certainly will. We're recording this currently, this meeting, so we can make available both the slides themselves and or the recording, assuming it works correctly, for your access later on, so for your reference as you're recording. So watch for those. We have your email, as you know, so that will be coming to you. We have one other question. All black attire considered professional? Of course, yes. If you're wearing concert black that you're used to wearing in your performances at school, that would definitely be considered professional attire, as would a number of other things. But again, if, like Dr. Gardner mentioned earlier, if you need to think about what you're wearing and you're wondering, is this really professional? Maybe you should plan for something just slightly a little more professional than you thought. Let's see what else we have. Can our music stand be in the video? I maybe need a little more clarity as far as what you're envisioning for the setup, but Dr. Land can talk a little bit about maybe the ideal setup.
Yeah, so I think, you know, are you going back, that might be a question about, you know, does it need to be memorized or something? No, you can use your music stand as far as, you know, reading the music and everything. But ideally, you don't, if you might be talking about just having it leaning on your music stand, or a different music stand, this, you know, 6 feet or so away. That would be okay, just as long as it's not obstructing the view, you know. Again, it's just kind of common sense. I would watch the video after you make it to just think, hey, does this look good? If this was going to be put on YouTube or thousands of people would watch it, is this what I would want it to look like, you know? So, so yeah.
Also remember that the most important element is, what does it sound like? What is your preparation? That's really what matters. The point of visuals is that they don't distract from it. Okay, so think neutral, think basic things, but really focus on the quality of sound and the quality of performance that you have in your video.
Agreed. Remember all of the things we talked about with scheduling your recordings. The early slides are really the main meat of what we're focused on. And then all these are nice details that help clean things up. Let's see, we're having a couple questions. Should we record our video from front or profile view? Does it matter what the angle of the video is if the audio is directly towards us? I would think probably not a huge issue, as long as your instrument is visible, is entirely visible. So I'm thinking about our trombone players or people whose instruments maybe grow as they play. Dr. Lane, anything else to add?
Not really. I mean, you want especially if you're using a phone for your audition, it's going to be 6 feet away anyway, and it's already going to be in, was it portrait mode or landscape mode? Um, so, we're going to be kind of limited as far as where it can be placed, just because we're focused on capturing the best audio we can. But again, you just like Dr. Garn was saying, you want people to walk away thinking that sounded really great. If they walk around away thinking, "Oh, that camera placement was just perfect," instead of thinking how good your sound was, that isn't the best possible outcome. So just so it's showing your whole body, showing your holding your instrument properly and things like that. That's another thing too, is making sure you're holding your instrument properly, since they can see you. But yeah, so just the main thing is making sure that they can hear the best possible sound.
Great. We have a couple questions just to clarify about recording your scales or your etudes separately. I think it's my understanding from the chat that you can record each etude as a separate take. So you have your scale, your etude, and your other etude, and then you could put all of them together. But the editing is, as far as it goes, is just putting them together. You're not to edit out portions or try to get that one note just right. Remember, your editing is really your practicing, and then your recording is summarizing what you've prepared. Dr. Lynn, anything to add about recording each etude individually?
Not really. I mean, as far as your editing, we're not supposed to go through and do any splicing or any advanced things like that. But I would just make sure you talk to your band director to make sure you have the format exactly right. Because you don't want to be docked any points for something like that.
I'm going to clarify here. I have a message from Rebecca Eden, who's a band director and member of ILMEA. She says, the student audition videos will be submitted via an unlisted YouTube link, as they have done for FMES. Only one video link that contains the entirety of the student's audition will be submitted, but each component of the audition, your scales, your 2 etude excerpts, etc., can be recorded individually and put together into one video. So you would need editing software like iMovie or Movie Maker if you're using Windows. Let's see, the individual components of the audition should not be edited. So it's not like you take part of this recording and part of that recording and put them together. Okay, it needs to be straight through to the end. And let's see, there should be no text, audio, or video effects at all. So no fun filters, no, oops, bubble, anything, all the fun things that we get to do on TikTok and Instagram. We're going to leave that out. We're just going to keep this like straight, clean, beginning to end. Okay. If there's other questions on that one, feel free to ask your band directors directly.
It's just trying to recreate the audition, the in-person audition. If you were in person, you wouldn't be, breaking everything up, or you wouldn't be, adding any filters or anything like that. We just want to make this a very professional and recreate that experience.
Great. So I think we have just one final question here from Nora, asking about standing and playing or sitting and playing. I'll leave this to the professionals, but my initial reaction is that you should record how you normally practice. So whatever is comfortable for you, what feels the most natural. You don't want to try to adjust anything about how you play to record, because you want to get your very best recording. But Dr. Land, Dr. Gardner, anything to add?
Absolutely. The same thing, whatever's the most comfortable. And if you have always practiced your etudes sitting down, and then suddenly you start to stand for your audition, that's just going to be something that's just different. And it's just some other element of the audition that you're focused on instead of playing your best. So just do what's comfortable and do what you have practiced.
Great. All right. So we're going to pause here for a moment. I do see Stephen's question real quick about playing in a really dead room or dry room, adding reverb. That would probably be considered editing by ILMEA. So I would recommend trying to find a space that might naturally have some more resonance for you. That would be off the top my recommendation. Dr. Lane, anything quick? Or
I think for this specific audition purposes, I would try to not do that. especially if you're not very familiar with some of the reverb software, because you can really make your audition sound manufactured, which will be a big red flag to the audition committee. I would try to focus on getting into a auditorium or something like that instead of manipulating the recording, just because there's so many factors that can go into that, and it's really, if you don't know exactly what you're doing, you can make it sound kind of worse than you intend. I would try to get in a room that has good reverb. If you play in a room that's really dead, they're going to hear every kind of issue with the playing. So auditorium, large family room or something like that at your house, I think will be your best bet.
Great. Alrighty. Thank you everyone so much for your questions. Really spirited conversation. I appreciate everybody taking this seriously, especially our first time in a digital audition environment. So it may be the way for a little while, as some people alluded to in the chat with some college auditions. So this will serve you well in future as well. So Dr. Lynn, if you can switch back to that last slide for us as a reminder, we're gonna transition into our final portion of the event today. We're really excited to bring forward some current WIU students. Wow, that presentation went so quickly. Thank you, Dr. Land. Some current WIU students who are here to talk to you about what it's like to be a music major. And when we say music major, it's more about life in the School of Music. So if you're interested in even pursuing a music minor or interested in performing in ensembles while pursuing a different major, we can speak to that as well. But we have 4 students that are gonna join us, and we're really excited for it to be a dialogue. We'll have them introduce themselves and chat a little bit, and then just like we've just had now, we'd love to answer your questions about what it's like to be a music education major, music therapy major, or just life in college, life in music school. So that is our hope, and I'm going to see who all we have here from our Western group. We have a lot of participants, so it's hard for me to find if they're here yet. I see Tiana is here, Susie is here. So
maybe we should take like a 2-minute pause for people to turn off their cameras, get some water, and then...
Yeah, let's start right back up at 3. Everybody, if you want to, you know, stop your video, what have you, take a quick break, get some water, etc., and we'll be right back up at 3. Thanks, everybody. It's the same link. Okay, I hope we don't lose everybody in this transition period.
Annalise, I would recommend stopping the recording and then restarting it so that you don't have one big long recording.
That would be epic. Okay, I'm gonna stop now.